So to give you a bit of an overview for the agenda today for what we'll be covering, we're going to be going through, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, we're going to be going through the 7 deadly digital marketing mistakes from medical and aesthetics practices. And throughout the course of the presentation here, we're going to be touching on some of the biggest mistakes that I've seen as the CEO here at ClinicGrower, what I see a lot of businesses in general struggling with. There's going to be a lot of low-lying fruit and opportunities for you to uncover on the call today. And then as we get into it, we're also going to have a workbook with you that I'm going to share in just a moment so that you can benefit from the session here today, okay? Now, again, this is Bref. I'm the guy on the left here, and Brad, who is one of our other owners here at ClinicGrower. And essentially at the core of what we're going to be covering today is it's going to be the components of the fundamentals of business that people are making mistakes in. We call it our growth formula. Generating leads for your business, refining conversion, making sure those leads turn into conversations, reviews, reputation, the things that we can leverage to grow the business, and also really optimizing as part of a medical and aesthetics practice, optimizing those leads for scheduled patients, for shows. We'll talk about some of the mistakes people are making with automations, speed to lead, some of the quick wins that you can get from the call today. And inevitably, it's about tracking, winning, understanding where you are with your business so that you can do more what's working and do less of what isn't moving forward. So real quick PSA before we move on. Really appreciate your attention on the call today. I know that it's busy being in business. There's going to be people knocking on your door. There's going to be patients. The more that you can stay plugged in for the next 60, 70, maybe up to 90 minutes, we'll include some questions and answers. Essentially, the more you're going to be able to benefit from the session today. As we get through the session, or perhaps on the call, write down those questions that you have. We'll do a Q&A session at the end. We're going to go through the 7 mistakes in detail and then speak about ways in which you can avoid them. I promise I'm going to be here focused on delivering for you today. And I just ask that you stay plugged in as well. I'll keep an eye on the chat throughout the course of the webinar here, and I'll be able to answer questions at some intervals during it, but certainly towards the end as well. And so this essentially is, I'm just going to unpack real quick what we're going to be covering today. So we're going to reveal and I'll talk about those top digital marketing mistakes that businesses are making. We're going to talk about examples and show examples of what's working, also examples of what's not working. So as far as failures and successes when it comes to maneuvering around those typical mistakes and also the pitfalls that exist that some practices are falling into. We're going to also give you the opportunity to map out a plan, so a plan of action. I love these workshops. I'm big on, it's always great, right? And in continuing education to absorb, to take notes, but we all know that the real magic takes place from implementation. And so we're going to be sharing a workbook here in just a couple of minutes that you can use. You'll be able to have it, to save it on your computer and to use that in order to, to help your business as well. And then we're going to have some Q&A towards the end, and we're going to recap some of the things that we went through on the call today. So first thing I'd like you all to do, if you can, please, I'm going to drop this link into our chat here. And this link is going to give you the opportunity to grab a workbook that I'm going to go through on the computer here in just a moment. Okay, so if you take a look at the chat, you'll see a link coming through. That's going to open up a workbook, which is going to look something like this. First of all, when you click that link, guys, it's going to ask you to copy it, okay? So it's going to give you a notification, copy that link. That's what it's supposed to do. Just hit that copy button. It will then open up another page for you so that you can have that copied. You can save that to your computer. This booklet here is going to be yours to use. So take just 2 minutes. Make sure that you can download that or copy it on your computer, and you can save it then as well. Give me if everybody can just give me a 1 number, first of all, to let me know that they were able to access that.
Which ones do we need again?
So hit that link in the chat when you're able to access the workbook.
The mail HRT.
And I'll ask you just to mute if you can. I'll help find some people here as well, just to mute, because I know there's business going on, but we just want to keep the audio at a good level for everybody else that's here as well. Okay, appreciate that. Had to request permission, says access denied. I'm seeing a number of ones here. Ask for permission. Okay, so what we're going to do is try this again here. Anyone with the link is able to grab this. Here we go. Try that link in the chat there, everybody. You should be able to access. Just give me a number one when you can click that link and access the workbook. You're going to be able to use that.
Jenny.
Number one, thank you. All right. Okay, getting a lot of ones. Perfect. Perfect. That's great. All right, excellent. So in the workbook, this is what you'll be able to work along to as we get through the session. And there's a number of different key resources in here. So you'll be able to enjoy that as we move through the session as well. So we're going to get into this in just a moment. We summarize the objectives here, everything that we just spoke about, and then we're going to get into some of we're going to jump right in here because once you have access to the workbook, you'll be able to follow along. Before you get into the workbook, many of you on the call today know me, you know Brad, some of you have spoken with us, some of you have actually met us. Some of you have been clients of ours for a number of years. Great to see you. And so for many of you, you possibly don't know us. This might be your first interaction. You may have actually just signed up from some of the marketing and advertising that we've done. So I'm your host today. I think we're just going to make sure that everybody can mute here. There we go. Thank you very much. So Brett McHugh, CEO, founder of ClinicGrower. And so one of the things I'm going to bribe your attention with today, as I mentioned in some of the credentials here, is we recently released our book. We wrote a book, Labor of Love, took a couple of years, close to about a year and a half. Stay to the end of the webinar here today. I want to make sure that you get access to our book. There's 399 pages of value. We're going to be touching on just a few components of that, some of the mistakes that you need to avoid when it comes to your digital marketing. I've also spoken at a number of industry events. I love to do these trainings, these webinars. And essentially at ClinicGrower, what we do is we do growth marketing for medical and aesthetic practices. So a little bit about me before we get into the session. If you don't know much about us at ClinicGrower, ClinicGrower.com, we work with ambitious medical and aesthetic practice owners to help to drive more patient volume, to help scale their business. We work with different shapes and sizes of practices, from some typically more established, but some newer practices right up to national leaders in the space. And big thing for us, and I want to convey, is that we do it by developing win-win relationships, really forging partnerships with business owners as you on the front lines help people look better, help people feel better, and help people be better. And we celebrate those wins internally as well. Stay to the end, guys. I promise you'll be worth it. I'm going to give you some bonuses, but also a free copy of our book, which at some of the recent events we were at has been snapped up. We have distributed over 300 copies of our book since we released it towards the end of April. So we're really pleased with that. And it's an opportunity for us to deliver more value to our marketplace and to business owners such as yourself. So without further ado, we're going to get started and just jump into one of the first mistakes when it comes to digital marketing. And I want you to know that at the essence here, there's fundamentals, but there's also going to be some specifics and strategies that you can apply to your business. The first mistake that I see a lot of businesses make is one that I've made myself. I've made myself a number of years in a row. And it wasn't until I got very intentional about the specific goals of my marketing, the specific goals when we work with our practices, the specific goals of their business plan, their marketing. Otherwise, without identifying that goal, it's kind of like you're flying in the wind, essentially. Goals matter because
I'm down to get Mexican food, but you want South Man, that's fine.
Just gonna ask you guys just to mute there if you can as you come in.
Me some fish tacos.
All right, I'm just gonna do a little bit of muting here so we can put up more into the call, but we just got a little bit of background noise that we're gonna move past here. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. Here we go. All right. Okay, good stuff. So look, I'm not going to go through this. This is going to be a long lecture on why goals matter. I think as business owners, everybody gets it, but sometimes the reinforcement is very important. Without goals, there's a lack of direction. Goals provide efficiency because we're able to prevent against that waste of money once we have specific goals to measure against. And that measurability is something that we're going to talk quite a little bit about here as well, because that's where a lot of the inefficiency can happen in a business. The consequences of not setting goals is, look, there's a lot of businesses that we'll speak with, and look, maybe some of you on the call are guilty of this as well, is you got to have a focused approach to goals or more of a scattergun approach. And with a scattergun approach, it's very hard to measure and to make meaningful impact. It causes waste of resources and essentially missed opportunities when it comes to capitalizing, to getting more leads, to getting more appointments, and to getting more patients into your practice. So again, without those clear goals in mind, like I said, it's kind of like you're floating into the wind or caught in the doldrums. without the ability to define goals and then to tactically implement to achieve those goals, it's pointless. And with clear goals in mind, that's really when, as a business, you have those wind in the sails, you have the momentum going, and all because simply you started with the end in mind. So we're going to talk about that in just a moment relative to the worksheet here. And if you open up the page 1 of your worksheet, for example, and you slide down, what you're going to notice is that we've got an area here in your time or on the call. If you have the opportunity right now, and a lot of you will, we find it's helpful to go through this in real time. It's simply write down where you are with your business right now. You're on the call here because you're in a certain situation, your business is in a certain situation, and you want to improve on that, right? That's what we're all here is to get, just 1% better every day. And so write down that current snapshot of your business. Some key performance indicators are that revenue, that monthly revenue, the annual revenue of your business, the sales, the number of sales that you're doing on an average monthly basis, and then the average transaction. These are numbers that are going to help you to understand that as you implement some strategies, the positive impact that can have for your business. And also for most practices, an understanding of the number of appointments that you're getting on a monthly basis and the show rates as well, because they're areas that with improvement and with optimization, that helps everything else. It increases sales and increases the revenue for your business as well. What we're also going to do is I'm going to give you the opportunity to really to future pace and make sure that when it comes to your goals for the next 12 months is where do you want your business to be? Most of you on the call today will have an idea. I'm at, $1 million. I want to get to 1.5. I'm at 1.5. I want to get to 2. I'm at $75,000 a month. I want to increase that to $125,000 a month. So write those numbers in, because the gap, that delta, is going to be where you'll be able to understand, okay, how many sales does that require? How many transactions does that require? And then from that, how many appointments, how many opportunities do we need? Okay. Can I just get a number 1 in the chat here if everybody's following along? This isn't going to be a whole webinar on goals. That's not what it's about today. But number 1, the one main challenges that I find with practices, one of the main mistakes they make is they start doing, we're going to do, let's do a bunch of marketing. Yep, sounds good. We're going to do this. We're going to do Google. We're going to do Facebook. But without that specific goals, the objectives in place, everything else is just noise. You're just doing stuff without having a true measurement to strive towards. Okay, I see some ones coming through here. Awesome. I appreciate it. Fantastic. Okay. Now let's get a little bit of feedback in here. How about in the channel? I just want to get a pulse on the type of practices that are on the call today. Write down the type of practice that you own or operate, whether it's a med spa. I know we got a lot of med spas on here today, whether it's a cosmetic or plastic surgeon, whether you're a vein clinic. That's the type of core practices that we typically work with. So in the chat, if you could just drop in the name or the sort of the niche that you're in within medical and aesthetics. Thank you, Terry. Med spa, Kit Med Spa. Yep. Yanka, for sure. Good to see you again. Yep. We've got Nicole. Okay. Awesome. So we've got a lot of med spas, plastic cosmetic surgery. I see Dr. W is here as well. Fantastic. E-learning. Interesting. Okay. Very good. Paul, med spa, a lot of med spas on the call. So yeah, a lot of aesthetic practices here. We love helping you help patients to look better, feel better, and be better. So vein center. Awesome. Fantastic. So we're going to move on, guys, to some more of the mistakes, and we're going to talk about how to help you to avoid them. Number 1, the best way to avoid this, not having goals in place, is quite simply to set them, to set specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, time-sensitive goals that you can then measure against during the course of the year. The examples that I showed you earlier, that overall goal could be to grow revenue to 2 million from 1.4 before the end of the year, to increase the average sales value, the average ticket. That's huge as well, increasing it from 1,000 to 1,200. Okay, 20% increase right there. So you have to essentially attract, 1 less patient for every 5 that you're seeing just by increasing that sales value to stay even. Obviously, you want to, increase the revenue that you're generating. There's some samples of goals that we've provided in the workbook as well. I definitely encourage you after the call today or during it to really use that workbook, set those goals, or even reset some of those goals based off where you currently are, okay? Now, at the end of the session here, I want to give you the free book, access to the free book. Also going to give you access for anybody who doesn't have our 2024 digital marketing plan and extensive training that I go through. So I'm going to be able to give you both of those at the end of the webinar here. Okay, so we're going to move on to a couple of more mistakes that I see practices making. We still have some folks joining the call today. Number two, the mistake that I see a lot of businesses making is mistakes on websites, wobbly websites, woes with websites. Your website, of course, being your digital storefront, your digital practice, and really the first impression a lot of patients get out of your business. And some of the top mistakes that I'll go through in just a couple of minutes. The importance of websites, obviously, I think it's worth reinforcing. You want to turn visitors into inquiries, into leads, into appointments coming into the practice. We'll go through some specifics, and I'm actually going to show you a couple of examples here that I think you'll be able to see as well some of the clear areas of improvement a lot of businesses can make just on their website. Because the truth is that you have a very limited number of time in order to make that impression and to use that call to action to get that visitor to take action on your website. They're making up their mind pretty quick. They're also looking for clarity on your website. They're looking to take that next step with you or with somebody else. So we'll take a look in a minute at just some examples as to the mistakes that specific practices are making. And I'm going to navigate to one of my screens here and just give you a little walkthrough of, we've got an A and a B here when it comes to websites. And I think it's going to be helpful if you look at the information here as we go through it and look at it insofar as where you are, where your website is. Perhaps there's some wins here that you'll figure out that, yes, you're doing that right. And perhaps there's some areas as well where you're going to see areas for opportunity. So the first website here on the left, for example, just going to open up the screen here a little bit. Okay. Now, one of the most important components of owning your business, your medical, your aesthetics business, especially brick and mortar, is it's about people helping people, right? It's about you helping patients. And so one big opportunity here, and a mistake that this practice is making, is that they're really not conveying any personality. It's kind of cold. This area here is called the hero section of your website. And this is your opportunity to really gain a positive first impression. I talk in some of my trainings about KLT points, which is know, like, and trust. And your website page is an opportunity for you to do that, either through examples of patients that have had a really good opportunity, that opportunity for the visitors to connect with people, or also an example of your staff, you, your team, a nice warm picture, but imagery of people on the homepage here, extremely important. This particular practice as well, they don't have a phone number visible. So it's got a number of different, pretty much just services. There's not an opportunity really to find out much more about the practice. And so, this business is essentially missing out on some opportunities to make more of a connection with people and to convert more people, okay? Now, while this particular practice also offers products, this isn't necessarily what you want to put forefront, unless there's some reason. Unless there's, this particular practice isn't seeing many patients right now, or they have the inability to. But what this would be more suitable for is further down the page and really focusing higher up on what the unique offer is of the practice, why the person on that page should reach out. We want basically some good storytelling, the ability to give that patient, so in a really short amount of time, the reason to spend more time on that website. So we're kind of lacking, like I said, some personality here with this first example. It's quite cold. It's pretty much, until we get down towards the bottom here, why choose? And even in this section here, we're just lacking some personality. So as you're looking at your own websites, we'll just encourage you to look at it through those lenses as well. Are we connecting with the patient? Are we showcasing our team, our expertise? Are we showcasing you and building your expertise as the authority and the go-to provider in your marketplace? When we're showing images of the business itself, are we showing an empty patient room or a patient room with your team there that's welcoming patients in? Looks like it's going to be a good place to go visit. I get it, but I see too many practices that they focus on these minimal imagery, which is showing nobody in the practice, which doesn't really convey the opportunity for patients to come join us, come here where everybody else is coming. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to navigate across to another website here, and we're going to go back to a checklist, and we'll refer to the workbook that you have as well. So an example of another practice, which would be, this is a better website, and we'll talk a little bit about why. Also, welcome in any questions in chat. If you have any or any comments, feel free to go ahead and enter those in the chat as well. But here we've got, this is a website which it's more aesthetically pleasing, right? And in the aesthetic space, we want that. It's using imagery of patients or, of models of patients, but it's got that attractiveness, it's got that allure. It's got the kind of some of those seductive mechanisms as we talk about. It's also got a very, it's also got a very robust menu of different opportunities for that patient to find out more about specific services, the gallery. It's got the opportunity to contact, book the appointment, and also to call into the practice as well. So we're checking a lot of boxes there as far as the initial menu and navigation goes. And now we're getting into the some of the the reasons for that patient to stay there, because they're looking for a leading practice, one of the best in the business, and that's where a patient wants to be. From an SEO standpoint, we can see they're using some good SEO components here. They're really localizing it for that patient, which makes perfect sense. They're using some good call to action here so they can find out more about us. Now we're showcasing the services here as well. And this is quite a standard format for, for a lot of aesthetic practices. We've got a good call to action here if they're ready to book the appointment. And now we've got the team here as well. We've got Ashley, who it's a nice, regular, warm picture that the visitor is going to get to know a little bit more about the team before they come into the practice. That's really important for somebody who hasn't been referred. Maybe they're checking you out a little bit. It's the opportunity for them to figure out, I could see myself coming in. I could see myself meeting Ashley. I'm on board with that. This is key as well. Having reviews, social proof here. If you haven't got social proof on your website, find out a way to do that. It's obviously a big deal. We're going to talk a little bit more about reviews in just a minute. It's got the map here for patients that want to find out exactly how they can get there. And it's got another different formats, an invitation for patients to reach out and get in touch with the practice. We've obviously got the social profiles here as well. And so there's a lot of boxes that we're checking here on this particular website. So consider your website, what are you doing to basically to do that, to connect with patients, to develop those KLT points, and to give that patient those trust points to contact you and come into your practice instead of going to another website. And we have to remember that online, there's a lot of patients that you don't find out about them until they've clicked, gone through the contact form, or phoned you at the practice. A lot of people that are checking you out, which is why when you check your website data, visits are great, but really how many calls are we getting? How many inquiries are we getting? What does that look like? And so some of the things that we went through to summarize, consequences of a wobbly website, obviously that isn't necessarily conversion optimized. You're going to see high bounce rates. There's going to be, due to that, lost leads. We see a lot of the times, we'll talk more about automation, but unless that patient, that opportunity has the ability to be followed up within an appropriate amount of time, leveraging automation, there's lost opportunities there. And also just the poor user experience. We are talking about first impressions for a lot of patients. So we want to make sure the experience is really good. I'm going to give you a copy of our website conversion checklist at the end of the call here as well. So again, before we move on to the next phase, I just want to distinguish a little bit between websites and landing pages, because this is a common mistake that's made as well, is using websites instead of landing pages for advertising. The difference I wanted to touch on is that with a landing page, it's very much conversion optimized. It's a guided journey. It's very singular. There's, in many cases, a lot more calls to action on specific landing pages. You have the ability to do A/B testing on those landing pages, for example, from paid ad campaigns. Whereas a website, this contains a lot more information. There's multiple pages. We saw multiple service pages. It's really building out the mothership of content for your business, having a good navigation in place, detailed content where you can establish that brand, that persona, and really provide a good base for your SEO. Okay. One final thing on websites, big opportunity, and another mistake I see a lot of practices make is not using chat widgets. Just putting that chat widget on your website gives you a real advantage.
What's going on? I don't know what I'm doing.
Opportunities, more leads. I'll just ask everybody to hit that mute button when you join in. There we go. The chat widget itself, tremendous when it comes to generating leads, just putting that on your website. I always want to say that the chat widget doesn't have to be manned 24/7. That's where you can leverage automation, but it's always an opportunity to generate that extra lead, because in many cases, patients with especially if the website isn't a guided journey, they're going to check out before they have the opportunity to click on contact, go down to the contact forms, the chat widget. That's a little bonus opportunity for you to consider there as well. Okay, we're about to move on to mistake number 3. Can I just get a 3 in the chat? I just want to make sure everybody's with me. I'm going to take a quick sip of water here. If there's any questions on 1 or 2, you can fire them in. I'll be checking that after as well. Everybody's ready to keep rolling here. I like it. Number 3. Number 3, we touched on it. It's neglecting reviews, or it's not paying as much attention to reviews as we should. And the reason that reviews are so important, again, I think it's something that everybody gets, but what we want to do is we want to really maximize the referral opportunities that we get at the practice, right? The best patient is always going to be that patient that's been referred by a family member or a friend, and reviews give us that opportunity because more reviews equals more calls. We see it time and time again, more calls. It increases the trust that a patient has in your practice. From a aesthetic standpoint, you have more reviews than your competitor and a higher review. Well, I think we've done it before as well. Which restaurant will I go to? You're going to go to the one that has more reviews, better rated reviews. And at the end of the day, it equals more schedules. It increases the show rate because if you're generating a lead through an ad campaign or otherwise, that patient goes to check you out. They may have a second guess if they don't see more reviews, if they don't, have the ability to kind of satisfy their need that you're the provider, that you have the reputation. And reviews can take time. We're going to talk about some strategies that can help you to get them, but they're so important in 2022. If anybody's proud of the number of reviews that they have, I would love to get a pulse on how many reviews we have here. If you care to give us an example in the chat here, I think that would be awesome to kind of gauge how many reviews you as a business have. If you haven't checked that out recently, just Google yourself and you'll be able to see that. So consequences of not having reviews and neglecting reviews. And we're going to take a look at a couple of examples here. As I said, it's a loss of potential for getting patients into the practice because without constantly growing your reviews, it's like you're constantly falling behind. If you're not getting more reviews every week, then your competitors are. And you don't want to be that practice that says, I'll do it tomorrow. And you're stuck at 50 reviews, knowing that in 6 months or 12 months, your competitor could have 3, 4, 5, 6 times more reviews than you. And the catch-up game just gets harder and harder. So having a good review strategy in place is essential. It's going to give you positive impact when you do it, negative impact if you don't. And just a quick example here, again, picking a couple of examples of practices in a similar area. You just ask yourself, which one would you be more prone to visiting or clicking on or calling? Is it the one with 10 reviews, 4.2, or is it the one with 90 reviews? And also just a good example of the imagery here as well. That warm picture of the team accompanied by more reviews. We'll take a look at this in more detail in a minute, but it's pretty simple as far as which one of these practices is going to be maximizing the number of leads and patients and opportunities they're getting just from having taken care of that one thing, that Google business profile and the reviews that they have there as well. Okay, cool. Paul, thank you. I appreciate it. Okay, so strategies to get more reviews. Now, many of you have heard me speak about this, or Brad. Many of you are doing this. Many of you are doing this with us. But the most important way to get more reviews for your practice, and the thing that will live on perpetually, is creating a culture. Creating a culture to ask for reviews, so that whether it's you as the business owner, and I know from speaking with many of you here that you rarely let a patient leave. You as the business owner rarely let a patient leave who's had a great experience without asking for a review. It's just, it's built in, right? It's inherent. It is almost part of your muscle mass. But we need to also create that culture with our team to make sure that they do that they're asking for reviews as well. The reason being is that as you scale your business, you're not always going to be there with all of your patients, right? You're going to be adding providers. You've got team members that are checking patients out. Many of you are doing this currently, but making sure that we've got that built into the culture. One of the most successful ways to do that is to, number one, again, to build it into your regular, whether it's daily huddles, your weekly meetings, but also to incentivize your staff, to gamify it, right? To create the contest opportunity that, when you go from 50 to 75 reviews this month, that your team are getting a bonus. it feels good to get to win a prize, right? Whether it's, employee A or employee B that wins. And guess what? Whoever wins, you can also give a bonus to the other person as well because they've generated reviews for you. But really importantly, it's also about building morale. Your team loves to see more positive reviews on your Google business profile. They love to see them come in as much as you do because they're proud to work at your practice. They're proud to help patients. So really creating that culture of asking for reviews. I want to do a pulse check. Can I get culture in the chat channel? If you guys have a culture of asking for reviews, find out what that looks like at your practice. And we'll talk more about that towards the end. Or if you want to give me right in, improve into chat if you feel that you could really improve where you are with your Google reviews. QR codes. Neva, yeah, fantastic. In fact, that's one thing I was going to cover is building the culture, but also giving patients the specifics. Instead of just asking for that review, hey, can you leave me a review? Absolutely, I'm definitely going to leave you a review. And then you know what happens? That person, guess what? They leave, they get into their car, and they totally forget about it 3 minutes later. They had the best intention, but they got busy, they forgot. And so as Neva mentioned, QR code on point on the location is a great strategy. Making sure that you ask that patient too. And we've got to take the awkwardness out of asking for reviews. And I think today it's just accepted that people want to leave reviews if they had a good experience. As a review culture in society. Just asking that patient, hey, while you're here, would you be opposed to leaving us a review? Would mean the world to us. Only take a couple of minutes. Making sure we're asking that patient. And also there's ways to do it as well, just to kind of have fun with it. Hey, I'm going to go lock that door unless you leave us a review. I know you love coming here. You've been here 3 times already. You leave us a review. Whatever works with your personality, with your staff, but we've got to get those reviews because if we're not, then somebody else is. The QR code, as Neva mentioned, making sure that QR code has to go somewhere. Google is the best place to drive that to your Google review links because Google is still that 800-pound gorilla. Those reviews still outweigh a review on Facebook, a review on Yelp, a review on Best Self, Health Grades. Those Google reviews are more impactful. It helps your search engine optimization. As we saw when patients look at Google before they come into your practice, they see more reviews there as well. So ask for the review. Use a link to send it directly to that patient, either text it to them on the spot, get them to do it on the spot, or as Neva said, use that QR code as well. So make it easy. There's also a lot of you guys are doing business cards. That's fantastic. But get them to scan it right there. Give them the card, have them put it on the counter, get them to do it on the spot. Otherwise, your chances significantly diminish for that patient actually leaving a review, okay? So when it comes to reviews as well, you can only improve what you measure. And so whether it's just on a weekly basis, looking at where you were on a Monday with reviews and measuring it again the following Monday so that you can understand how many you've got. But there's also review tools that you can use, dashboards, in order to monitor and review and measure the number of reviews that you're getting. In our tool, Growth Express, for example, we use it. But regardless of tools, just make sure that you're measuring and setting a goal, again, of how many reviews that you want. I'd encourage you right now, it'll take you less than a minute, write down the number of reviews that you have on June the 20th, 2024, and just ask yourself, where do you want to be on July 20th in just 30 days? I think it's very achievable for most practices here to have at least an extra 30 reviews. Just one more person that you're asking. I'm sure most practices here have at least one person every day that's had a great experience asking that patient and getting them to leave that review. And I want to touch on one thing that I've heard a couple of times as well, as far as, well, patients in our area don't leave reviews and patients here do. Asking that patient and conveying the importance of the review. They don't have to go into detail on the procedure, simply be a reference for your business, but just getting that review from that patient really is key. Okay. All right. Before we go on to number 4 here, and we're moving through at quite a nice pace, I think we'll have some good time for Q&A here in a minute. I'm just going to take a look at the chat, answer some questions as we go. So where do you recommend to put the QR codes? It's a good question from Hannah. Everywhere is the answer. But certainly, at the desk as the patient is checking out. Also, I find the business card strategy can be helpful, especially if you have a nice business card with your details. And perhaps if it's a new patient, typically you're asking for a review. It can be a new patient or somebody who's been in a few times. Strategically give it to them with a reason to come back. right? So give them that incentive to come back in the next time for, either a percentage off or just something that makes them feel good. And, as they're doing that, they'll feel good about leaving the review as well. Okay. So we're not paying them for a review, but just give them that business card, has an incentive for them to come back and asking them for the review, have that QR code on your desk. And then there's obviously, automation. Many of you guys are using some tool that will send the patient a request for a review after they've been to the practice. But hands down, best time is you, the business owner, or your staff enthusiastically asking for that patient to leave a review right then and there. Okay. Okay, cool. And Bianca says, yeah, ask every time to the point that it's almost annoying. Cool. And you know what? It's only probably annoying or the perception that it's annoying is possibly for you or for your team because you guys hear each other doing it all day. But I promise you that, patients coming through, they appreciate that and they'll want to do that when it's done, when it's done appropriately, when it's done in good spirits and without any awkwardness, they'll want to do that as well. Mistake number 4. Okay, before we do, I'm just going to take a little pulse on the workbook here to see how we're moving down through it. On the workbook, you'll see the list of website errors that you can go through, that you can essentially assess practice. Okay. We also have here within the review section. So neglecting reviews, again, just a checklist. Print this off, guys. Give it to your team. Blame me. Say, hey, Bref said do this. It wasn't my idea. But whatever it takes in order to instill that culture, this can be a really helpful checklist. It can be something helpful for you to keep at your front desk. Print off this workbook so you and your team can make incremental gains, whether it's one little optimization on the website, whether it's getting an extra review per day, or whether it's going ahead and looking at the visibility of your website with local SEO, which we're going to get started on next. The workbook. Okay, so Kate, thank you. So for some of the folks who joined a little bit later, I'm just going to post the workbook here inside of the channel. So inside of the chat, what you're going to do is you're going to get a link, and that's going to give you the opportunity to open up the workbook. You'll be able to read down through it, kind of catch up with where we are, but it's yours to print off. So with that link, save it on your computer, print it off. Many of the folks here are using this as an opportunity to workshop, which I love to do on the calls here. So you can take action and start to improve the business on the call here today. Okay. All right. So local SEO. With SEO, there's a lot of stuff to it. A lot of practices I'll meet will be doing SEO. Yep, we're doing SEO, and there's a company doing it. And it's just important to ask questions from the company you're working with as far as what are we doing for SEO, search engine optimization? Because as I'll break it down, with good SEO, with good search engine optimization, you're going to increase the local traffic, increase the number of visitors that you're getting to the website, and you should increase the quality of visitors. It's going to enhance your visibility. You should show up more. We'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. It builds trust and credibility. When patients are searching for you, you're popping up, you're there, that repetition, that frequency. It also leads quite simply to more calls, more leads, more scheduled appointments, and more patients showing up at your practice. And without good SEO in place, it's missed opportunities. There's patients that aren't finding you, they're finding somebody else. It increases the trust factor for competitors. It lowers your trust factor as you're not showing up. It also impacts the ability to get patients into the practice, like less calls, of course. And there's just tipping points with SEO, which I'll explain in a minute. Once you appear on a page 1 for searches that you haven't, or once you appear in that local map ranking where you haven't before, all of a sudden it feels like, wow, what happened? It's like somebody turned a light on somewhere. Patients are finding us. And that's exactly what it's all about with a good SEO strategy. So we'll talk a little bit more. We're going to delve into SEO here. Hannah has a question on SEO that we'll get to about specific words, and we'll touch on that here in just a minute. So good chance for you to do a pulse check and to Google your own business. Maybe I normally don't like to say open up another browser here to stay plugged in, but as part of the work here, you can open up a tab and just Google your business and see how you're showing up. We're going to take a look at it, just a couple of examples, and I'm going to share some strategies for you to improve how you're showing up. Okay, we're going to talk specifically about reviews, Google business posts, products, and then that inviting image of staff. I'm also going to answer questions on on-page SEO as well. So the first example on the left here, and it's also in your workbook, there's an example of what we're talking about. So you'll have that after. So what we're seeing here on the right-hand side, this is the Google business profile. Now, Google has invested a lot of more time and resources in the importance of these Google business profiles. They realize that they're the 800-pound gorilla when it comes to search. They dominate the number of local searches, and they've increased the importance of having an optimized Google business profile. And so what that means is that here, for example, versus the example I'll show you in just a minute, again, that staff picture, that's going to get you more clicks. Ask yourself, would you click on this? Would you click on this? Looks a bit more inviting, real person, sounds good. We've got obviously the reviews. We spoke about the review factor just a few moments ago. It's never too late to start. You can go from 9 to 99 reviews pretty quick with a practice that has a decent new patient flow or decent patient flow. We've also got the reviews here. Google is really highlighting reviews more and more. They realize the importance of it. So the best way to listen, anybody can have a bad hair day. That happens. The best way to bury perhaps a bad review is to get more good reviews. Again, good reviews will solve a lot of problems when it comes to the Google business profile. And one thing I wanted to focus on here is a lot of practices will do that. Cool. Got some pictures, got a few reviews, and patients can find me now. So then they're sitting back. Where's the patients at? Well, guess what? The patients are at this practice here because they're getting more reviews. This practice is showing up more in local searches. Patients are really feeling better about coming to this practice because they're getting a sense of know, like, and trust for the team. And also, very importantly, from a tactical standpoint, this section here, which is called your Google business posts, this practice is doing it. They're posting on specific services they want to see more patients for. Botox. There's some of the underarm sweating conditions, for example, dermal fillers. So they've got a catalog of different posts here, and Google is prioritizing that because it says, great, this practice is more of an authority. They're writing content, they're educating the marketplace on services that patients are looking for. That's a good thing. We're going to give this practice more visibility. Okay. And we'll talk about that in just a minute, more about that. But also the product section. This is also neglected by a lot of practices. On your Google business profile, when you get into edit it, there's the opportunity to post, put that image in, do a nice little post about services that you want to see more patients for, okay? And also a product section. That's where you need to load it up with the services that you offer, so products or services. The reason this is important is because you've got your website, right, as we spoke about earlier, which is that mothership, and then you've also got the Google business profile. And think about it like mothership is the best example I can give. You've got the mothership and it's beaming down, but then you've got Scotty down here, you've got the content from the Google business profile. When they match together, that's when it lights up. That's when Google says, cool, the website is posting good content. This is an authority. And on our Google business profile, they're posting good content. The website's got everything in order. It's got all the tags and the images and all that stuff that I can send the SEO checklist on. But when they're in alignment, that's giving you your best shot in order to rank. A lot of practices are frustrated that they're not showing up on these local map searches, which I'll share an example of right here. When patients are searching, for example, for best aesthetic center or for best med spa, you want to be showing up in that map pack, right? If you search for best Italian restaurant in your area, you're going to see the practices on the map. You're more than likely going to use that to help make a decision if it's somewhere you haven't been before, or of course ask for a referral. But this is what it looks like when you're ranking in that map pack. I tell this joke, some of you heard it before. I'll totally understand if nobody laughs, but if somebody wants to put a smiley face emoji into the chat, I'll definitely accept that. The best place to be buried online is off page 1 of Google. And it's very similar on the map packs here as well. This is where you want to be ranking for the specific services that you offer, okay? And just an example of a practice here that really wasn't showing up, had neglected its reviews. We increased the number of reviews. We checked the box with doing the posting, posted content on the website. And guess what? That practice was lucky, might be the wrong word, but they were maybe fortunate that other practices in the area weren't applying the same pressure that we were to the content. When we did, really quickly, that practice went from not being on the maps into some of the top positions for some keywords they really wanted. And that's when they started to do just that, to get more calls, to get more leads, to schedule more patients and more appointments. we have a tool, and if you sign up for the book, it's a free book, by the way. I can also send this to you. Some of you may have used this tool that we have before as well. It shows you visibly how you're showing up and also your competitors, okay? So you want to put yourself, your business on the map. Local search really is one on that Google Maps. And so whether it searches for key services, Botox or lip fillers or best med spa, best cosmetic surgeon, you really want to focus on strategically 3, maximum 5 at a time. But if you're doing 3 of those services and you really want to see progress, okay, you have to, as a business owner, obviously have patience growing a business, right? You want to do it yesterday, but you have to have a strategy and then apply that strategy and measure the progress. So with specific searches, more patience that you want to get, do 3 at a time. Let's say, for example, you pick Botox, you pick dermal fillers and RF microneedling. Well, then write content on those 3, post them on your Google business profile, make sure you're posting them on the website, make sure you've done the other things that we spoke about with the images, with the reviews, and that's where you'll start to see all of a sudden the Christmas tree starts to appear, right? Okay, I can see we're going from these red dots, which means we're not appearing in the maps, to these green dots, which means, oh, my business is ranking now in those map pack. Wait a sec, I can't look at it because I got a phone call. The calls start to increase. Your business starts to increase. It can take time for this. Some markets is quicker than others because of competition, multiple factors. But when you apply these strategies, they work. SEO can be a long game, but with these specific local map searches, when you apply strategy specifically to services, you can see progress in those 45, 60, and 90 days, okay? Just answering a quick question here regarding the review. If you need a specific word that will improve your SEO, that's actually a great question from Hannah. So when you're replying to reviews as part of your local SEO on your review section, when you accompany the response to review, let's say that Mary Smith says, I really loved getting, my first Botox session at ABC Med Spa. The response to that review, when you say, Mary, thanks so much. We love being the #1 Botox provider in the area. So glad you had an amazing experience. That with consistency also aids and helps your SEO. That's on the checklist I'll provide you guys with, but good question from Hannah there. When you use a keyword strategy in the responses, you want the responses to sound natural and authentic. They should be, but when you can incorporate that keyword in the response, that can boost your SEO and helps to facilitate an SEO growth as well, okay? Okay. Yep, you are welcome. So again, just to run down some mistakes and reasons for poor local SEO: lack of reviews. It's on the checklist that I provided in the worksheet. Incomplete or accurate Google business profile. Lack of content in that Google business profile. Lack of congruent blog content, as I mentioned, on the website. Inconsistency with your name, address, and phone number. If you've got different variations of phone number and address, that's going to hurt your Google business ranking as well. Poor website optimization, meaning that you want to have quick load speed, you want to have a good user experience in the website, low bounce rate. Obviously, keywords are important. Citations, meaning again, local citations for local review companies, and mention the NAP, and also a backlink strategy. So when it comes to this, is more on the more comprehensive SEO, getting backlinks, meaning that your local community newspaper has a link or an article to you and you've got a backlink from there. Those types of links in the off-page SEO, that really helps as well. So they're all building blocks. The ones that are, I think, most in your control in the call today, and a lot of quick wins, as I said, for practices, are going to be the reviews. It's going to be posting on the Google business profile and posting relevant blog content and getting better imagery on that Google business profile. Okay. Any questions on that, on SEO? Before we move on, we're going to go into mistake number 5 in just a minute. I'm going to wet my whistle here real quick. Let me get my lucky number 7 in the chat if everybody's still awake and with me. I want to make sure we're all here before we move on. Thank you. Okay, fantastic. Love it. Love it. We'll keep motoring on here, team. Gonna provide you guys with some more goodies here before we go. Thank you, everybody. 7 is my lucky number. So mistake number 5, lack of paid ad strategy and poor tactics. Big one. We could do a whole webinar on this, but I'm going to break it down in a few minutes, some of the key components and some of the fundamentals here. Okay, so really important, the lack of the paid ad strategy and poor tactics. I see time and time again practices that we're doing the ads, we're boosting posts, or we've done it, but again, strategy to achieve your goals, extremely important, just real fundamental stuff. And I get it, in a world where we move really fast, that gets left to the side sometimes, is the goals and is the strategy, but so important because paid ads are essentially best friends to organic marketing. I'll say it again. We just spoke at a practice a couple of days ago that has behemoth following on Instagram. They've got, 800,000 followers, and some people on the call today have over 1 million. Kudos to you. It takes time to do that. Also, some of the folks we meet have got these paid services that get you 1 million followers, but it can be junk. So you got to be careful with that too. But when you have good organic and your organic is flowing at some level, similar to word of mouth, you can kind of tap out, right? Or it can be inconsistent. So that's where paid ads come in. And I love the picture on the right. I got to credit my friend Dominic Forth for sending this one to me. But we've got organic marketing here, and this is really your foundation, okay? And then when you add paid marketing, paid advertising, this really just accelerates the number of conversions that you get. It really builds growth on top of your current base, adds to scalable results, which can increase the performance. And the good thing about paid ads too is it can make really quick impact. And you can really see the needle turn very quickly once paid ad campaigns get activated and turned on. Also, the ability to strategically target certain areas geographically, demographically, from a service standpoint as well, okay? So without a solid paid ad strategy, this is where there's missed opportunities. There's always competitors that are vying for that share. If they're in front of prospective patients in platforms that you're not, then that's a reason why leads are going somewhere else and somebody else has that opportunity. There's that kind of inability to compete with competitors if you're not, competing in the same space as them. And also, when we don't have a good strategy in place, like we'll look at some examples in just a moment, that's where we're wasting money, right? If the tactics are there, but there's not good strategy behind it, then essentially we're wasting money. There's inefficiency, okay? Can I just get a $sign in the chat channel if there's anybody here who's doing paid ads? Would love to get a pulse on that for a moment. Kathy, yep, you are. Hannah, love it. Yep, got quite a few of us here that are doing paid ads. Okay, good. Well, then you guys are going to love what we're going to cover here as well. You may see some, some opportunities to improve what you're currently doing. So strategies to get more patients. So strategies to get more patients, for example, could be, and examples are in the worksheet here as we navigate down towards paid ads, okay? You want to start with your goals from section 1, then define your strategies. Maximize return on investment by concentrating marketing efforts on the most profitable services and focus ad budget on the top 2 or 3 of those services. That's a strategy that you can use. That's a strategy that you can share with someone on your team who's going to be doing the advertising, or it's a strategy that you can collaborate on with an agency or direct your agency on. We want to focus on these 3 services because these are the most profitable for us, and have that discussion with them. Another strategy could be to capture and nurture leads through targeted advertising efforts to convert them into scheduled appointments. These two kind of tying together, but again, writing down those strategies, having them in place, you as the business owner understanding what your strategy is, specific strategy on those ad platforms, okay? Because here's examples, and we'll delve a little deeper on tactics that you can use to execute that strategy. Okay, so goals, right? What's our goals? What's our strategy to achieve the goals? And then what tactical implementation are we going to execute in order to realize the strategy? And so tactics to do just that, to maximize return on investment by concentrating marketing efforts, some of the tactics that you can deploy are going to be, number 1, and we could talk, there's a bunch here. This isn't the exhaustive list. Yes, targeting, for example, understanding the medium, the market, the message, but just some practical examples for us here. Compelling ad copy, okay? Creating engaging and persuasive ad copy that highlights the unique benefits of the services that you offer at your practice, including strong call to actions that encourage users to click on ads. We'll take a look at some examples in a minute, but just that alone, I see a lot of mistakes from practices that are, hey, we're running a lot of ads, we're doing it. Look at the ads, and the ad might say something like, hey, come visit us, we're best practice in the area, you're going to love it. That's not compelling ad copy, okay? Google ad campaign. using high performing and relevant keywords, okay? Understanding what those keywords are with broad and exact matches, because you're going to see which ones are performing better and optimize from there. Creating a compelling offer, big one. What's that compelling offer for your ad to stand out? Many times we have to, to adapt offers and to not always be the cheapest or not be the cheapest name in town, but what compelling offer can we put together that stands out, that really sets us apart, so that patient, that person, that user online clicks on our ad. And your ad strategy can and should a lot of time be different from organic. Organic is going to be a lot of time it's brand building. You're delivering educational content. You're getting people coming towards you because they've seen you for 6 months. It wasn't the first post that they've seen. But then when you boost that, or you compare that essentially with your paid ad strategy, that's where you want to have something that stands out. Because if you're paying, $1,000 a month in ads and somebody else is, well, think about driving down the road with the billboard, okay? One billboard says, come see us, we're cool. And the other billboard says, best experience in town, top Google reviews, $100 this month. Which one are you going to click on, okay? So we'll talk about meta lead generation as well, using targeted Instagram and Facebook ads to generate leads, having an offer, whether that's a free consultation or a consultation package, essentially, that has some compelling variables in it. We'll talk about retargeting campaigns, where making sure there is retargeting sets up off those main campaigns, because without that, you're paying for the top of the funnel, top of the funnel, top of the funnel. But you want to make sure you're omnipresent and reaching patients over and over. And also a big one is landing pages. You heard me talk about it a little bit earlier, but making sure that you've got a dedicated landing page for those services you're promoting. I know a lot of practices I speak with will walk through their Google ad campaign or sometimes their Facebook ad campaign, and it goes to their website. And that's just that's a big mistake when it comes to losing conversions, but also wasting money on your ad investment, okay? Left or right? Guys, which ad would you click? This is actually, I'll call this a focus group. I have no idea what you guys are going to say, but it'll be interesting to get your data. Left or right? Which ad would you click?
Right.
Yeah, we're seeing it in the chat here as well. And so, yeah, now reasons, and you guys can drop them in the chat too, but again, it comes down to a combination of compelling copy, right? What got your attention? Was it vanilla? Did something stand out? Were they talking to you, right? When we write ads and we write ad copy, we've got to think about what's in it for me, right? WIIFM, great radio station. What's in it for me? How did the ad and the phone number get the URL? Call extensions, essentially there, call extensions. So with the ads here, and this is a sample. This is a real ad. This is a sample ad on the right. We've got, but the same tools that are available within Google Ads are here. There's the ability to, number one, you've got your headlines. Then you've got your descriptions. There's character limits on all of that. Then you've got call outs, and you really, with Google Ads, you want to take up as much real estate as you can. So by having those extensions, and also the big thing is having that compelling ad copy, right? If all said and done, if you got those two billboards, and one is, by the way, this was for Best Mommy Makeover. So this was actually saying tummy tuck. So something that he needs to optimize in his ads here. But even if that said Mommy Makeover, experienced plastic surgeon, Mommy Makeover, cool. Best Mommy Makeover in Tampa, get the body you want, special pricing when you call. Dang, I'm probably going to give them a call because I get special pricing when I do. They've done a bunch of procedures. They're really talking to me. So again, just looking at the compelling ad copy, we're looking at call to actions in the ads as well, okay? With Meta, let's look at the Meta ad copy. Again, compelling ad copy, attention-grabbing creative, strong call to action, and a landing page strategy as well. So a couple of different ads here. The ad on the left is, I'll see a lot of this with a lot of practices that we'll speak with, ones that are doing Facebook ads, but it's a lot of the time, it's almost like an afterthought to what they're doing on their website or sometimes Google Ads. This is more of a branding ad, and this ad itself really won't generate the same lead flow that's a top of funnel ad would. And so again, this would be okay from a retargeting standpoint because we're talking about the practice. Okay, the practice does this and it does this. We're the best. Cool. That's going to make more sense to me if I've already kind of, if I already know you a little bit, if I'm looking for reinforcement why I should choose you, but if I'm looking to solve the problem I have, and that's really what people are doing from an ad standpoint, they're really looking to solve a problem, then, how are you going to help me make up my mind? That's where having video certainly helps. This example of video here, for example, is an influencer video. So it has that third-party validation. This is educational. The ad copy itself is, the use of emojis is sticking out a little bit more. We're calling out the ladies in the area, for example, and there's that intrigue as well when it comes to, feeling more confident, having the ability to be more comfortable. And the headline you'll see here as well, that opportunity to take advantage of an offer for a lipo special up to $2,000 off. So very different styles of ads, but we see time and time again, the practices are using this ad on the left as an ad in order to generate leads and generate patients. And you just really can't do it efficiently at rates that you would like with these types of ads versus having a funnel ad setup, which is the ad on the right-hand side here. Okay, guys, any questions on paid ads before we move on to our next mistake here? We've got mistake number 6 coming up. I'll keep an eye on chat for just a moment. If not, if you're ready to rock and roll, if you're looking at the clock and like, let's go, hit number 6 in the chat and we can move on. Okay, all right, we're ready. Love it, me too. Great, so let's talk about mistake number 6. And one of the, again, big mistakes I see being made in 2024 is the mistake with lead management. Doing a lot of stuff, a lot of activity, but when it comes to lead management, there's still a large chunk, over 36% of calls and inquiries are going unresponded to across the nation. On average, 70% of leads are only getting followed up with once. Bang, call them back, nobody was there, onto the next one, onto the next one. And I know a lot of you on the call have seen this as well, that we really do need to follow up with patients. Great example. I'm guilty of being, for a lot of businesses this week, I'm the person who hasn't replied. I need to get a new backdoor installed on my home. I've got one referral, but I've got 3 other companies that I put my name, phone number, and email in on Sunday night. Best intention. I'm going to get to that Monday. Guess what? Here it is on Thursday. I've got a business, I've got employees, I've got kids at camp, I've got a wife. I'm going to respond to those practices because I know what it's like, but I'm that person that they need to follow up with. And there's one company that's doing a really good job and I responded to them, but there's also 2 companies that just sent me a message and then they've dropped off. And I'm not sure if I'm going to be speaking with them. I'm going to prioritize the company that has followed up with me very frequently this week with different points of contact, helpful information. I'm going to connect with them. So ask yourself, with the leads that you're generating, what's the cadence? What does the follow-up look like? Are you leveraging automation? A lot of practices suffering from what I call lead leakage. They're spending, they're investing and growing their business, but the opportunities are leaking because leads that aren't followed up with within 15 minutes can start to go cold. Okay, there's kind of a timeline in place that the longer it takes us to follow up with a lead, the less likely it is to convert. But the frequency is so important too. The ability to be able to follow up numerous times with these prospects, 5 to 7 times. In fact, it's really increased. This data is over a year old at this stage because patients are getting in touch in so many ways through calls, SMS, web forms, Google Business Profile, Facebook Messenger, Instagram messages. The list goes on. And today's patients, they prefer to interact, as I have with the companies that are getting in touch with me this week, through text message as a first communication. That's key. A lot of companies are still calling a patient, and if that patient doesn't pick up, well, they're losing that opportunity right then and there. So here's the solution, and it's a combination of people and process. Leveraging automation is a safety net. That email, that's those frequent touch points with the leads that have come in. It's so important because at a minimum, the businesses that are following up with me this week, I'm getting the impression, cool, it's Joanne. She's following up with me. Fantastic. I'm getting to know, like, and trust Joanne a little bit already simply because she's making the effort to follow up with me. I'm going to feel bad if I don't speak with her because she's making a real big effort to follow up with me to solve my problem. So I will. The automation is in place in order to help you to connect, to follow up. Patients will respond to that, okay? Email, text message, phone calls, of course, are important. Phone calls at different times of the day. Remember, if the patient, and this is a growing challenge, if the patient doesn't have, or the consumer doesn't have your phone number saved in their phone, then during office hours, during working hours, during family hours, busy life, the likeliness of them picking up on that first or second, sometimes third call, it's lower and lower because we don't have the number already saved. So we have to make that effort. Okay. So every prospect, we want to make sure they're touched at least 5 times. We're using text messaging as part of the process and ensuring that we have a plan for that speed to lead. Automation is your best way to guarantee that there's a speed to lead opportunity. And then from there, it's a matter of, calling patients at different times of the day and making sure that we connect with them. So text messages, as we said, crucial, making sure that we got a plan in place to respond to patients. You all see it. I've spoken to quite a few of you on the call today, and I would be shocked if anybody said that, patients do not like text messages. One quick story, I was speaking with a practice a couple of weeks ago, and one of the challenges that the doctor was going through is that he actually is working with a marketing company, and they're employing an element of SMS text messaging. But, and you got to be aware of this, be aware of this, is that what's happening is the text message that goes out to the patient says, this is ABC Medical, reply 1 if you opt in, reply 2 to opt out. That's the first message they get. So guess what? It's an absolute face plant. That campaign is not working very well for him. What you want to do is make sure that on your website forms, on your ad campaigns, is having the terms and conditions that patients are consenting for your business to contact them. Then you won't need a text message that says, hey, press 1 or press 2, because guess what? No one's going to press that. So make sure you got it built into the terms and conditions on your website and also within the landing pages and the lead generation mechanisms that you're using, okay? Here's a case study, a quick example of a practice that we recently, in the last couple of years, helped to plug those leaks. This data is from about within the last 18 months. And what we're seeing is that on the left, this is before we had the lead management process in place, and on the right is after. And before, they were missing about 31% of the leads that came in, combination of phone calls primarily, but also there was even more on the web form submission. We're measuring calls here. And then on the right, basically none, like less than 0.5%. What happened is, you'll see on the call duration, before they were getting about a little over 2 hours of call duration during a monthly basis from leads that were coming in because so many were being missed. I'm sorry, the average is actually, it was 8 hours. And then after the 30 days, the total call duration was 26. So basically tripled the results, went from 31 missed opportunities to less than 1%, increased the call response effectiveness by almost 60%, and generated a ton of revenue. This was for prepaid appointments for a cosmetic surgeon in those first 30 days. So while the numbers will look different on your side for each business here, just knowing that if you're able to handle those calls after hours, on weekends, at the time where the patient decides to make the call, and have automation in place to respond to patients through text, that's when you're going to keep that, think about it, keep that fish on the hook, or keep that lead live, that conversation going. And then from there, it's about that conversation and turning it into an appointment, okay? So tips for effective lead management: use automation wisely, develop a nurturing strategy, make sure that we've got that email in place, the ability to text message with patients, regular follow-ups, speed to lead, implementing a system where you've got that email that follows up within a number of minutes, text message, ideally within a number of minutes as well. And then, from a staffing standpoint, just strategically making sure that you can connect with that patient as soon as possible. But getting that text in rapidly is key, because then you'll be able to text and call that patient through that same phone number. Regular review as well, analyze the performance, adjust strategies as needed. Sometimes it's the text message strategy needs to change in some different markets. Different messaging works differently, just different approaches in different markets. So always be testing, never just, take one thing and roll with it. It's never usually just plug and play. There's always iteration, A/B testing, and optimization that needs to be done, okay? Okay, so we are going to wrap it up with our 7th mistake here. There's obviously a lot more in our book that I'll give you in just a couple of minutes. You can go through. There's a number of more mistakes. But can I get a number 7, my favorite number, in the chat, so that I can figure out that everybody's still here, that we're engaged, and then we'll wrap it up. And I'm excited to do a Q&A in just a couple of minutes here as well. Thanks, Denise. Julian, thank you. There we go. I've got 3 7s. That will win me some money on the slot machine. I've got a lot more now, so let's keep rolling. Okay, ignoring data and analytics. We spoke about it a little bit at the top of the call. inside of our checklist here. We've got the checklist on this as well. So a few of you on the call here I've spoken with, and when we had the conversation, how are the ads working? I think they're working pretty good. Okay, what is it? How many leads are you getting? I'm not quite sure. How many appointments? Not quite sure. Making sure that you've got that visibility, the lens in place, because a lot of times I'll speak with a practice or help to analyze their ad campaigns and find out that they've turned something off that actually was working, but they just didn't have the data. It was kind of, I just felt that one wasn't working too well. Maybe it was an image you didn't like. Maybe you didn't like it for some reason, but without the data in place, it comes down to emotion versus logic and versus data. So making sure we've got analytics in place, because with good analytics, it's going to obviously drive accurate and important, informed decision-making, performance tracking, the ability to optimize for success and for optimizations. You're going to be able to scale what's working. And without that, you're, essentially, driving blind, with best intentions, but a lack of understanding for what's working. There's going to be missed opportunities. And it also just means that there's going to be wasted budget. When we don't have good tracking in place, we're unable to scale what's working and to kind of cut the fat on what isn't, okay? An example here is for anybody who is running their own, this is just an example of a meta ad dashboard. And I'll talk to a lot of practices that will say, yeah, we got loads of clicks. The campaign's going great. Loads of clicks, loads of impressions. Just got a report that says we had over 30,000 impressions. Okay. But how many of those impressions came into the practice? Well, I know we ask patients and, so in order to avoid that, setting up those dashboards, this is just one example inside of your Facebook Business Manager. Feel free to take a screenshot of this. If it's not in the workbook, I'll drop it in there for you. But this is how I set up my Facebook ad dashboards, how I train my team with your different ad campaigns and ad sets. Reach is important. How many patients am I reaching? Unique, right? What's the number of impressions? And then you go from the left to the right, clicks, cost per click. Okay, very important data. The landing page views, how many people are going to the landing page? But really, where the rubber hits the road is how many of these people that we've reached are giving us their name, phone number, and email, sending us a message. What does that cost per lead look like? Because once we understand that, we can optimize against it. And then how many of those leads are scheduling appointments? Okay, you can track that stuff too when it's properly set up. Some of the folks on the call here today are leveraging our platform called Growth Express, where it tracks this at a higher level with patients coming into the practice, the number of new leads that are generated. But our team on our side, when we're implementing these, that's the type of data that we're going through. And if you're managing your own meta ads, and I know a number of you are, then setting up a dashboard here so you can see what's working is going to be extremely important for you, okay? So key data to track. We took a look at it there. Maybe some of you took the screenshot. The number of visitors who take the desired action, that conversion rate. What's the cost to acquire? The cost to acquire a new patient. That's key because that's how we like to scale our clients' campaigns. Figure out what is the cost in order to get that patient into the practice. Return on investment, of course. That's really what it's all about in life. What are we investing our time, our energy, our resources in? What's the return that we're getting from that? Whether it's in social life, hanging out with people, what's the ROI? Team members, what's the ROI? And of course, when it comes to marketing, what is the ROI as well? The patient lifetime value. This is something that we could do a separate webinar on it, but extremely important. And we live in a world of now, which is crucial. But I was almost going to replace this mistake number 7 with another one, which I'll tell you, which is focusing on acquisition, not retention. And when we're focusing on acquisition, that's extremely important. I mean, acquiring new patient leads is crucial. New patients, new business is the lifeblood of your practice, but we've got to retain. We've got to get that patient in for the second visit, the third visit. So a lot of practices here are medical spas, cosmetic surgeons that have recurring revenue associated with, non-surgical as well. So once we get that patient in, that's great. But how many more times can we get them in? How can we develop that relationship? How can we ensure that patient wants to set a reminder on their calendar to call us 3 times a year because they want to come in and get more treatments done? That's really what it's all about. So when you're measuring the analytics from your ads, which ads are generating the leads and generating the appointments, understand that, but also understand what your lifetime value is. And we should always be looking to increase the lifetime value of our customers, of our clients. The ways to increase your revenue are to, number one, to increase prices, right? Number two, increase the lifetime value. And number three, to introduce new products. So lifetime value really is a key component here. If you can turn a patient from someone who's coming in for 3 visits and then maybe forgets about you because there wasn't reminders in place, there wasn't the next appointment wasn't booked at their current visit, all these things that we can control, or your reviews kind of fell to the side and someone else opened up in your area with a nice new building and a bunch of reviews and special offers, all these things. You know, what are we doing to understand what's important to our patients and increasing the lifetime value? That's such a big one. Tools that we can use to do this. So Google Analytics, that's a great tool. You can get nice and granular with that when it comes to web traffic. And if you have it set up correctly, you can really see what's happening from multiple different directions that patients are finding your practice. There are limitations to analytics, of course. It can only go so far. So having a good CRM system set up, a customer or client relationship management system in place is key. That's like the screenshot of Growth Express here, which is built on an open market tool called Go High Level that many of you may be using. But there's abilities in there to really get granular and see what's working and see where patients are coming from. Marketing automation. Some of you who may have seen the digital marketing planning that I did will know there's an ROI calculator in there as well. I'm going to give this to you in just a minute as part of some of the bonuses that I'm going to send when you sign up for the book offer, or when you get that free book that I have in just a couple of minutes here as well. So quick tips on basically effective data analytics. Set those goals, regular monitoring of your data, and continuous improvement. It's that simple. Make sure you got the goals in place, measure it, monitor it, and then make changes against what you've measured so that you can look to improve, okay? We're at 4:20 here, or 4:19. We are going to wrap it up in a minute, but I'd love to find out if there's any key takeaways. We can do a Q&A here in just a minute. Is there any particular low-lying fruit, things that you saw on the call today that you could just do that one thing, or those 3 things that you know you can do, write them down, get them done this week, that will help you to get more and to grow your practice? Have a think about that. And while you're doing that, I want to make sure that everybody who's on the webinar here gets our free book. So Brad and myself, owners of ClinicGrower, we were at a number of events recently. We actually hit the Amazon bestseller with our book, which is Seductive Digital Marketing and Sales for Aesthetic Practices. I want to thank those of you on the call who have already bought it. And some of you have, and some of you have left reviews. But it's a great book. It's 397 pages. And so somebody recently said, oh, I can't read, there's no way I can touch that. It's too much. Well, look, you could read 10 pages a day. But the nice thing about the book is that each of the chapters in the book is basically a problem that you can solve, whether it's no-shows, whether it's chapter 11 on how to do better video, whether it's chapter 5, which is crafting the irresistible offer. Just pick one chapter, focus on that for 2 or 3 days, 2 or 3 weeks until you solve that one problem in your business. The book retails at $20, $19.95 on Amazon. The book is going to be free when you scan the QR code or text "I want the book" to this number here, which is 877-813-6873. What we're going to do is we'll send you a link, or you'll go directly to the page, enter the information. The book itself, it's like a standard $4.95 media postage fee that we pay to ship the books out. But do that, and I'll make sure that you get the other goodies as well, which is going to be the digital marketing plan, and I'll add the screenshot to the worksheet that you have here as well. But please do yourself a favor, grab the book. We'd love to make sure you get it into your hands. And I'm going to take a look at the chat here and answer a few questions. I think that is it for the questions. Okay, awesome. Well, again, thank you everybody for joining. This is the 7 deadly digital marketing mistakes for medical and aesthetic practices. Really appreciate you all being here. Don't forget to scan the code here to get your book, or text "I want the book" to 877-813-6873, and I'll send along the goodies. Thanks so much, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday.